Oh, all right. Here we are. Can't see them. Here you all are. Yes. All right. Well, welcome, friends. I don't know if you were here yesterday or not, but the theme of the week is basic sanity. Steadiness, openness, and love. And yesterday I just spent a little time at the beginning of the session just exploring that sense of basic sanity, undoing the tendency we might have to grasp for something special meditation states, etc. And rather defining basic sanity as the capacity in some ways to just navigate rather in a non-stick way through any and all states. Now that's the great liberation in a way, is not expecting or needing something special, but having just the matière, the substance, the texture of the conditions we're in, letting that be the territory of our practice. How easily we long for some different territory. Or maybe you've seen that little cartoon, I want to be in the moment, just not this moment. No, but this is the one we've got. This is the one we've got. There's something very simplifying about life when I'm mostly interested in the circumstance of this moment and how to meet it skillfully, rather than why this moment is like this and the fact that it's not fair that this moment be like this and I wish this moment were, some other way. Of course we might wish it was some other way. But if you feed that, you feed restlessness, agitation, distraction, judgment, comparison, complaint, and you get lost in all that shit. So this is the moment you've got, friends. This is the body you've got. These are the circumstances you've got right now. And of course they're all malleable, right? They're all workable. Body can, will, does change. Circumstances can, will, do change. Right? I'm not suggesting some kind of passivity where we don't do anything about the way things are. Right? But let our responsiveness, a sane response to the way things are, let it be grounded in actually being able to first meet a body like the way it is, a mind the way it is, circumstances the way they are. To meet these circumstances without judgment and resistance and complaint and comparison is really the ground from where we can actually make a skillful response. So we got into some of that yesterday, and today I thought let's just take that quality of steadiness and do some meditation together. And what I'll emphasize in the meditation is the lower belly, right, as a kind of energy center. Dantian in Chinese, or Hara in Japanese, or Kath for the suit in Arabic. It's interesting that so many of the ancient contemplative cultures all have a name for this, the energy center of this lower belly, which we don't really have in the more contemporary idiom. So we'll just call it lower belly. The womby center. That's how the Buddha refers to it. He talks about yoniso manasikara, means literally, right? It's translated as embodied attention. Right? We might say embodied presence, but literally it means womby presence. Yoniso, from the womb, manas, mind, sikarana, action. So it's like, let your mind operate from your womb. It's an interesting construction. What does that mean? It's like, let your attention come down and rest into this sort of deep space the deep space that you find down in your lower belly. And maybe we don't initially find that. Maybe what we find actually is tension or tightness, or maybe we can't find the lower belly at all. We're so overstimulated up here because all our sense organs are stuck on here. Oh, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm tasting, and then of course what I'm thinking. So it's like just that exercise. It's one of the most simplest but really most powerful and profound and transformative elements of a meditative practice, I would say, is to just train gently for your in yoniso manasikara, womby attention, having your mind rest in your belly. And firstly, then, if you can't find that, you start to find it. You can always put a hand there if that feels helpful, to sort of as an additional support for your attention. Or if you find that there's, some of us are tense in our belly, just gently, just breathing, right? Not breathing in any special way, but letting the in-breath just gently inflate that lower belly, letting the relaxation of the out-breath kind of rest into the lower belly. And it opens up, like I said, opens up a sense of depth and space and steadiness, like feeling like we've got this deep, wide, trustworthy centre of gravity. It's somehow very related to trust, actually. The lower belly, a relaxed belly, opens up a sense of trust. Trust in this moment, maybe we could say, or trust in our capacity to meet what arises. And the tension that we sometimes hold in our belly is often a tension related to, we could say, anxiety or fear, but most fundamentally we could say it's related to a lack of trust. And of course, many of us have had experiences in our lives that seem to have shown us that we shouldn't trust. Of course, there are certain people and certain situations that aren't trustworthy. But we then tend to take that into all kinds of other situations until we assume that nothing and nobody and nowhere is trustworthy. And so we carry that tense sense of we're braced against the world, braced against life, and we've forgotten, actually, how to trust. Ooh, excuse me. I tried to turn my volume. I hope I turned my volume down in time to save your ears then, especially if you're wearing headphones. And I sneezed. Trust. Confidence as well. I think of confidence as being a kind of puffed out chest quality, but that's a very brittle, fake kind of confidence. Real confidence feels deep, quiet, relaxed. Real confidence has nothing to prove, doesn't need to assert itself in any way. So kind of real confidence actually has a feeling of a certain kind of contentment to it. At ease in one's skin, at ease in one's mind, at ease in one's soul, at ease in one's belly. So this, and then just one other image I'll give before we sit, is that image, the Zen image related to steadiness and to the lower belly, which is the image of what they call sitting like a mountain. To sit like a mountain. And already the form of sitting posture is mountain-like, right? Pyramid-like, triangle-like. Steady base. Steady base. Kind of upright sense of dignity. Just think of the trustworthiness of a mountain. The rootedness of a mountain. Stretching up into the sky, but kind of deeply rooted, broad-based, steady on the earth. So I'm mentioning these qualities just to kind of evoke them as we go into the meditation. And I'll give a little guidance, but please keep it simple. Main qualities are, firstly, establishing, right, your posture. Let yourself really feel that steadiness of your base and the dignity, the uprightness of your spine. There's something kind of profound about the actual posture of meditation. It doesn't matter if you're on a chair or on the floor or whatever, but it does matter that you kind of tap into a sense of steadiness, that you kind of, that sense of trusting the earth beneath you, letting your body actually rest into the floor, the ground, the earth. And it does matter that you kind of connect with that sense of uprightness, dignity, wakefulness. And then even if your attention, if you're not used to resting in your belly, even if your attention keeps kind of bouncing up to thinking, bouncing up to this overstimulated region, that's okay. Don't fuss with that. But just, it's like let your attention ride back down on the out-breath, back into your belly. And let's see if we can just feel for a quality of openness and relaxation, of depth and space, of ease and steadiness. Down in your belly, down in this womby center. So friends, it's like this that we meditate together. Feel the steadiness in your posture. Let your buttocks and thighs really soften into, rest onto the earth below, as if your cells are trusting the earth to hold you. Actually might try just a few kind of languid out breaths. You can even sort of sigh or add a bit of voice. As a way to carry your attention down into your belly. As a way to use your voice to soften your throat and open your chest and descend down so you can feel the sound down in your belly. And, in a very real way, the lower belly is a kind of energetic center of gravity. of our consciousness, we could say. So just like gravity draws everything, you might imagine that your attention is just being gently drawn into your belly. And even though thoughts and habits keep pulling your attention elsewhere, if you just soften, relax those habits, as if where your attention most wanted to be was down here in your belly. As if all your attention is being gently pulled into your belly, drawn into your belly, like iron filings to a magnet, like bath water to a plug hole. Like bees to a flower. So sensing into that whole area down below your navel. And just sensing particularly into the felt sense of breath down here. The swelling of the in-breath and the softening of the out-breath. With the intention to just stay. Sink. Sense. Sensing deeply with each in-breath, resting deeply with each out-breath. And staying present. Down in your belly, through that momentary gap between breaths. Woomy attention. Belly full of presence. use the feeling and the qualities of breath to deepen that sense of resting your attention into the deep space of your belly. Use the natural expansiveness of the in-breath without forcing the breath in any way to sense into that deep space down in your lower belly. Use the natural relaxation of the out-breath to rest your attention completely down in that deep space in your lower belly. Anytime you find that you're lost in thought and some idea or image or story, just let that thought bubble burst. Just let your attention drain back down into this womby space. Soft belly, deep presence, steady, relaxed. Sitting like a mountain. settling, sensing, softening. And seeing what you find down in your belly. Maybe you just need to keep coming back again and again, letting go of thought again and again. Or maybe there's some sense of steady or deep presence. And if so, you can feel out whatever qualities you find down in your belly, which may be a sense of depth, of spaciousness. Sometimes there's a kind of deep black velvety feeling. Quality of silence or stillness. Peace. Vastness. As if there's a deep space into which all thoughts can dissolve. Into which all sensations can fade. Into which everything can dissolve into everything. Woomy attention. Soft belly. Deep space. May we all know deep trust, an unshakable confidence in life. May we all have access to true steadiness. Clear mind and an undefended heart. All right. Oh, it's good, isn't it? It's good to sit. Not always pleasant, but it's good. Oh. All right, friends. Well, if there's things you want to bring this morning, anything you want to explore or ask about, please feel free. That's what I'm here for. So, yeah. While you're writing questions or raising your hand or whatever, just the reminder that all of this is offered by Sangha Live. That's as an offering, a sense of wanting to make practice and teachings and also interactivity with teachers as accessible as possible, and that there's a lot of work that goes into that, and just like it's an offering to you, then the request is, if you're so moved and so able, to make an offering to us, and it's the mutuality of that offering that allows this to happen. And the finances of Sangha Live, I know, are quite precarious at the moment. So I don't say that to alarm you, but if you've been wondering whether or not this might be a good time to offer dana, let me reassure you, it definitely is. So, the Sangha Live is completely financed by the offerings of people like you, right? All of you who show up to events, appreciate what's happening here, and offer support. Support to me and other teachers, to support to the platform itself that's able to pay its bills and all that goes with that. And then, that's also support for everybody else who can subsequently turn up and connect with practice and teachings here. So thank you for whatever support you might offer today or any other day. Even if you consider what you're offering to be a modest amount, doesn't matter. A modest amount offered with good heart is a beautiful thing. So thank you for your dana, and George has just put the link in there. Thanks, George. All right, let's have a look at. I saw a few questions up here. Savina says, probably men have a spiritual womb. It's interesting. If we think about the three main energy centres of the body, we clearly recognise there's a difference between the brain, right, which is a physical organ in here, and what we might call the mind, which is completely non-physical, right? But we just get the sense when we say the brain and then we talk the mind. Mind is sort of, I feel like there's a centre of operations here. I can't find it. You're going to open up your head, you won't find a mind in there. You'll just find a brain. But when we say mind, we feel like, yeah, that makes sense. So when we have these two words, brain, mind. When it comes to the second energy centre of the heart, we use the same word, right? But we recognise that it means two very different things. There's the blood pump, the organ, just like the brain is the organ here. There's the blood pump here, which is the heart. But then we also use heart to suggest the centre of emotionality and love, and that doesn't happen in the blood pump, right? But we just intuitively sense, this is the heart. This is the centre of emotional life. This is where love is somehow energetically experienced or organised or centred in the body, right? So brain, mind, heart. When it comes to the belly, we just don't have that recognition in our culture. But in exactly the same way that there's an organ down there, right, the stomach, but there's also a whole energetic thing. So we might use the word womb, like we use the word heart to refer not just to the organ, which of course women have and men don't, but also to refer to this kind of energetic centre of presence, steadiness, embodiment, trust, confidence. Just like this is the centre of cognition, and just like this is the centre of love, this is the centre of certain really important, brilliant, beautiful qualities. So we might say it as men having a spiritual womb, but I wouldn't say, men have a spiritual womb and women have a physical womb. No, aside from the organ, which only women have, we all have this kind of this deep energetic centre, and in many of us it's defended or sort of unactivated, we might say. And this kind of practice is absolutely the right way to activate that lower energy centre. And I've taught a bunch on this, which I don't know where you can find that stuff, but you must be able to find it. Head, heart and belly. Sometimes I've taught some courses called Head, Heart and Belly, or Presence, Wisdom and Love, which are the sort of corresponding things. But I would say actually we start with the belly because it's so foundational. Good foundation. You start with belly-centered practices, then heart-centered practices, and then working with the brilliance of mind becomes much easier because it's based on these other foundations. If you try to just work with your mind immediately, you just get carried away and caught up in complexity and distraction. Voila. Lotta. Hello, Lotta. Lotta says, the relationship with my brother is tense because I'm engaged in the climate and don't fly, while he flies with his family for pleasure. Even though I don't say anything, he seems to think I judge him and have said he started avoiding me. how to bridge this separation. It's painful and doesn't feel wise. Well, do you judge him, Lotta? Do you judge him? Are you thinking that you're a right and good and pure person in some way? You might not put it quite like that, for not flying, and that he's a bad or insensitive or inconsiderate person for flying. I think you have to. That might be part of the interrogation, and you might want to focus on expressing your love for him and wish for connection with him, and the fact that you have different values is secondary, right? But you have to check, how secondary that is, because if there's some simmering resentment or judgment, he'll feel that, and if there isn't, then you can let him. Then good, you can let him know, hey, we've got different values and different lifestyles and different things that are important to us. But one of the things that's very important to me is, that you're my brother. And even though our lives are different, I love you and I want to be connected to you in some ways. So there's a kind of, the honesty of expressing what's good and true, but also the wisdom of putting aside that which doesn't foster your relationship. If we only let into our lives, or only let be acceptable in our lives, the people who are in complete alignment with us, we have a very, very narrow life. And I find it's actually especially important in such polarised times, we're so sort of politically polarised, etc. It's really helpful and important and refreshing, actually, to have contact with people who are on the other side of the political spectrum, have views that are different from our own. Of course, you don't want to hang out with somebody who's vitriolic in their views and is just spouting some kind of aggressive, angry, hateful, bigoted bullshit, right? But it doesn't sound like that's what's happening, and it's really a shame if that which makes us feel or act or think differently drives a wedge between us. It needn't separate us. And it's the same exposure to sort of some of the information we take in. When the algorithm is so much giving us the stuff that we already agree with. It's very dull to read stuff that you just only need to read or take in information that you already agree with. Much more stimulating and helpful for one's own sort of critical thinking and kind of reflective process to take in information from people that you don't agree with and see, why don't you agree with it? Sometimes to be challenged. Maybe, because often people who disagree with us still have some quite good points, etc. All right. Giles, in the midst of distressing life events, this was so helpful. Oh, good. I found the image of bees returning to flowering plants so soothing. Good. I'm glad to hear, Giles. I tried a few images there, and after I came up with the one about water going down a bath plug hole, I thought maybe something a little more kind of poetically evocative might be helpful. So, bees to honey. There is something about sensing that and attuning to the belly as somehow having this kind of power of attraction to attention. Or treating your attention, even though attention, bounces off here and there, treating it as if where it most wants to be is here. Because there is a kind of truth to that. Our habits are so strong to go everywhere else. But actually when our attention does settle, we realise, there's no better place for our attention to be than here. And letting yourself sort of taste the satisfaction of that, the sanity, right, of that. The ease of that, the restfulness of that, the congruence of that is very, very helpful. Yeah. Good, Meg. I'm glad you enjoyed my chanting, Meg. I chant with a kind of spectacularly dirgy voice, but I'm glad you appreciated it. Yeah. Okay. Question. I'm still in the chat box, but I see there's a little blue icon on the question box, so I'll go there after this. Sinclair says, my daughter-in-law finds fault with me a lot. I always stay calm and take it on the chin. And anger I did not know was there welled up during practice, and then tears. It's been a shock. Yeah, I can imagine. Well, good that you stay calm in a way. No harm, no use in getting into unnecessary conflict. But it doesn't surprise me that there's a kind of that has an impact over time, right? And I would say it's quite healthy that after the initial upswell of anger, that tears followed. So rather than, if we just stay with the anger, there's something hard happens, right? I'm angry, how dare she speak to me like that? And you just go off. But if the anger quickly breaks into tears, it's a pretty good sign that there's a kind of, that the emotional life is flowing. So I would actually take comfort from that. And the more you can allow your own emotional life to flow and not get stuck or repressed or shut down or lost in blame, etc., the more you're not holding on to anything. And then you might find as well, the more you might find, might it be judicious actually, not in a reactive way, to say to your daughter, hey, find something to say that, it's kind of, I feel like you find fault with me a lot and it's quite painful. And I don't know the kind of relationship you have, I don't know how susceptible she might be to that, but I do know that the more reactive we are when we say something, the less likely somebody is to hear it. And conversely, there's a potency, right, that when we're actually doing our own emotional digestion, sometimes we can find ways to say something that, because it doesn't have any kind of aggression or reactivity in it, sometimes it can be surprising how potent a few simple words can be when they're delivered, with love behind them. And love is what will show up once we've digested the anger and the tears. You might not like your daughter-in-law very much, right? Especially if she's always finding fault with you. But even though you might not like her very much, it's perfectly possible to love her, to recognise that her criticism is coming out of her own sort of tight or fearful, consciousness, and that in doing all of that and then finding fault with you, she's somehow trying to make herself feel better or feel secure or something. Yeah. All right. Oh, that's nice, Claire, to hear your cat started participating, purring with her own woomy presence. All right, let's have a look at the questions. Maria says, and I think I'll probably only have the chance to do this one question, so please feel free, Leah and the other person, anonymous person, please feel free to add your questions again tomorrow. Maria says, I find it very powerful to bring the attention to the lower part of the belly, but I cannot distinguish it from the feeling of breath expanding and retracting. Is that the same? For the purpose of practicing like this, Maria, yeah, just let it be the same. Just let the attention soften and sink and rest, and what it's resting into is just that feeling of expansiveness and relaxation, like movement of the belly. That's fine. Stay there. And we'll do a similar meditation tomorrow, I think. We'll just stay with kind of barely full presence and the ways in which that can open up. And some of the other qualities I was speaking about right now, depth and space and all, they'll come online, but be patient. It's practice. That's why we just do it over and over and over again. Okay. So, yes, Leah, I can talk tomorrow. How are we doing? 58. All right, I'll try one more. Leah says, I'm new to Sangha. I'm beginning to unravel my Christian cognitive patterns and foundation. Is there a concept in Buddhism which understands unusual coincidences, which Christianity might explain as a gift or guidance from a deity? Well, there's really just the sense that everything is everything. Everything belongs to everything. You see this symbol behind me, Leah? This is called the eternal knot, this symbol. And what it symbolises is that
everything is every condition in the universe is bound up with everything else, right? Nothing is separate. And as such, we might add that everything is somehow, in some ways, subtly influencing everything else. Like the famous, what's that, butterfly wing thing, And so, there's all kinds of interconnections. I mean, there's innumerable. There's total interconnectedness, and that interconnectedness also runs. There are energy currents and things like running through us and running through things. So the fact that seemingly unusual or unaccountable coincidences happen, it's not. It's unaccountable in terms of we can't figure out the karmic connections, we might say. But, it's sort of like, it doesn't make sense cognitively or rationally, some of the things that happen, but it does make deep sense, because everything's interconnected. So, maybe that's a helpful way to make sense of things. And that's not about believing that everything's interconnected, right? It's more just sensing. This is a breath, like breath. Just by entering into breath deeply, it's like, breath is an amazing example of the way that we're completely connected to everything. Like this breath, like this is the world entering into this body and then leaving again, and then it's entering into other bodies, and and then the trees are participating in it. And the trees are taking in the carbon dioxide that I breathe out, and they're releasing oxygen that I breathe in. It's like, we all belong. We all exist in a condition, actually, of fundamental belonging, total belonging. All right. So, friends, if there are probably more comments I didn't manage to get to yet, and there's another question there, but we'll leave it all for tomorrow. And please feel free to come back, and we'll do it all again. All right. Thank you for your presence and your practice. Please go gently through the day. See you tomorrow.